episode is for all of my introverts out there. I know there are a few of you, much like myself and my guests today, and we're going to be talking about quiet leadership. Joining me today is Lissa Appiah, and she is a certified career strategist and executive coach. And we are going to be talking about helping introverts become better leaders. But before we get into it, I must give Lissa a moment to shine and tell us more about yourself, anything you'd like us to know. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and take it away.
I'm Lissa Appiah. As was said, I focus on working with introverts and I help introverts land and succeed in their first leadership role. So really supporting introverts to leverage their strengths. There's a lot of stigma, especially in the corporate world around who an introvert is, and a lot of the workplace is built around networking and socializing, and typically it's the people who are the loudest, more charismatic, who tend to advance easily in the corporate space. So I really work with introverts, not helping them change who they are, but recognizing the strengths that they have and how to use them to their advantage so that they succeed in their career. So I am an introvert myself. I've been promoted 5 times in less than 8 years, using many of the strategies that I teach my clients and support them with. And in terms of professional background, I built a career over the last almost 15 years in the public service here in Canada, and transitioned my way to starting my business in 2020. I previously had a nonprofit organization that I ran, and we did workshops for youth around career development, and that evolved into my business, which is Redefined Canada. So yeah, I work with individuals, mostly one-on-one now, and helping them to make career transitions, land promotions, and succeed in leadership. And then I facilitate workshops and trainings for organizations.
There's something that you said that stuck with me and it stood out, and that is really understanding what an introvert is. Now, I too am an introvert, and a true introvert. I know even before we hit record, we were both kind of talking about our batteries being a little bit drained, being a little bit depleted. But since it is a word that I would like to say, for lack of a better term, it's gotten a little oversaturated. Many people identify as introverts when maybe they're just, I don't know, they just don't want to do anything, or they might just be a little bit more shy. So tell us, who is an introvert? What makes someone an introvert?
The best way I would put it is that being introverted is more about energy management and how you gain energy. So for extroverts, they typically gain energy through social interactions, by being around people, by socializing. But an introvert typically gains energy and recharges when they're on their own. It's not necessarily about, do you like people? Do you not like people? Are you shy? Are you not shy? Which is where a lot of people think what an introvert is, but it's actually about more how you energize yourself and how you gain energy.
I completely agree with what you just said, because for me, it definitely is about energy. For example, just yesterday alone, I had to exert a lot and pour into people for the entire day, for like 12 hours. And so by the end of the day, I was just like, oh, I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't care if I was coming across as rude. I had just about enough. So I just wanted to touch on, so we can get some clarity on, if someone identifies as an introvert, they truly are an introvert. So I love that the word energy came up. So now, an introvert in the professional space, in the corporate space, and one of the things you did say is extroverts tend to advance a little bit faster, a little bit easier. So piggyback from that, what is something an introvert needs to recognize within themselves in order to, because you said you got, what was it, 5 promotions in the last 8 years. So what is something that an introvert needs to do or be mindful of in order to truly be successful in the professional space?
I would say the first thing is just being self-aware. A lot of introverts are self-aware, but sometimes in the wrong way, in a negative way. So seeing their introversion more as a weakness instead of seeing it as a strength. So you've been told growing up maybe that you're too quiet, or somebody has told you know, I've been asked even the question like, "Oh, I didn't know you were here. Oh, were you here?" Like, people have discounted you over time, and this is often the stories I hear from my clients as well. So they've created this narrative that being an introvert is not a good thing, because typically the people who tend to move ahead at work are those who go to the after hours and the events that are happening after work, and they have lunch together, and they are friends. They actually socialize outside of work. For me, I didn't want to do any of those things. Like, I was not interested. I came to work to do work, and once I'm done, I want to leave. Like, I'm not here to make friends. So already myself, I had that narrative as well, that maybe there's something wrong with me because everybody else is doing it. How come, I don't feel like doing it, and I didn't want to force myself to do it either. So, that I think is the biggest piece, just self-awareness of who you are and what you offer, and recognizing that the value that you bring to the workplace is not a weakness, but it's actually a strength. So if you're already able to change that internal narrative, that's like 80% of the work ultimately, because once you start recognizing that the skills, the strengths that you have, like deep listening, or being able to read between the lines, or being flexible and adaptable, you being a person who can lead by example and understand others much easier. All those are strengths that introverts tend to have and bring to the workplace. But if you don't value what you offer, it's going to be very difficult for somebody else to value the strengths that you bring to the workplace.
And with you sharing that, and also taking note, you've mentioned it now, I've mentioned it, I've echoed your promotions, your success in the professional setting. Can you think back to that first promotion and recognizing that you're an introvert? What made you successful enough to be able to earn that promotion as an introvert? Just from asking from your experience.
That's a good question, because the first promotion was the critical one. That's when I was realizing, okay, I need to shake things up, or else I'm not going to go anywhere in this career. Ultimately, what happened is that there was an opportunity that came up. I was leading on a file, and an opportunity came up to travel to advance the work that we were doing. And they selected another guy who wasn't the lead, but I was told that he was more charismatic. He was better at public speaking, so it would be better for him to represent the team. So I basically did all the work. I did the research. I wrote the speaking points. I basically created all the documentation for him. And he just went and read and studied what I prepared. And he was the voice to my work, essentially. He eventually ended up landing a promotion shortly after that mission trip, got a lot of recognition with executives. And the truth is, it's not that I couldn't speak publicly. It's something that I had done for many years. As I mentioned in my intro, I was running my career, but I also had a nonprofit organization, and I also volunteered at church. And for those who grew up in the church, they put you on stage at a young age. You're volunteering, you're doing all the things, right? So talking publicly is not an issue for me. It's just that I never had that opportunity to really showcase it in a work setting. So they saw me as this quiet person who does the work. Okay, this person is qualified, they're smart, but let's just keep them there as the quiet person who does the research. while we ultimately take credit for the work that she's doing. And I was like, no, that's not the brand I'm going to build for myself. I'm not going to be that person, right? Because I did want to advance in my career. At the time, I had a master's degree and I was starting my career, and I had some previous work experience as well in the private sector. So I was already starting off in a position that was lower than the qualifications that I had. So I knew that I wanted to move up quickly. So that was the mindset that I was coming to work with. So when that situation happened, I was like, okay, this is not going to continue. And that was the moment that I decided, what do I need to do to start positioning myself for growth, for promotion? And that's when I started to build a new brand in terms of who I was, not necessarily like going out of my way to speak or to get seen, but just being more strategic of how I was showing up at work. One of the things that I did, for example, the more senior analysts tend to report back on the things that we do. So there was, it involved corporate reporting. And as a junior analyst, we didn't really work on those things. But I was like, okay, they're often complaining about the corporate reporting. So I was like, let me learn what it is and see how I can start positioning myself as an expert in corporate reporting. This is not necessarily like I was taking on more work than I needed to. It was just a way to gain some visibility without really going out of my way. So when these conversations would come up with the more senior analysts, I would start speaking. I would be able to follow the conversations. So people started to recognize like, oh, okay, she knows what she's talking about. Let's bring her to the meeting. Let's start involving her in the work that we're doing. And in one of the meetings that I went to, there was an executive who was building a new team. He told me like, hey, I'm looking for someone with corporate reporting experience. You seem to have a good background. He told me when the job was opening for the promotion, and I applied, and that was the first of the 5 promotions.
Well, congrats on your success. And it also sounds like there is, and the mindset coach in me now wants to go in that direction. There is a lot of mindset work that would have to go into it. So are there exercises an introvert should practice? Is there certain types of reframes they should work on? Following up to that, just how they define leadership, because it is a big word.
Mindset is definitely a big piece because we spend all these years going to school, you spend all this time building a career, and it influences the way that you think. It influences the way that you perceive yourself. And if you are that person who's been told you're too quiet, you're standoffish, you're not going to. I remember even in my graduate, when I was doing my master's degree, there was the professor that was basically telling me that, with the way that I'm so quiet, I'm basically going to stay at entry level positions because I don't have what it takes for leadership. So I had all these narratives that people had told me. I remember even and this was a mentor that I had, and at the time I was telling him, oh, I'm thinking about starting a business. And he was basically like, yeah, I don't think you'll succeed in entrepreneurship. It's a dog eat dog world, and you're too quiet, you're too soft, you're not going to make it. Yeah. And so you have all these narratives, all these things that people have told you over the years. And sometimes it is those negative things that we hold on to more than the positive ones, right? So yes, mindset is super important in reframing that narrative in terms of what you've told yourself and what people have told you. So self-coaching is definitely something that I practice with my clients to help them support them to be able to reframe their mindset. So yes, I work with my clients one-on-one, but then throughout the week, I'm not with them at work, right? So I provide them with tools so that they are able to self-coach and to change the narrative that they have about themselves. For some people, I'm a pen and paper girly, so I like to write things down. And so that's what has helped me. But I have clients that for them, what works is visualization. I have other clients that for them, what works is actually just typing and keeping track of their wins or keeping track of times that they had the opportunity to make a shift in the way that they were approaching things. I have other clients that it's really just, they're in bed, they lie down and they just start repeating to themselves, making a conscious effort to repeat to themselves who they want to be. So the approach can change for depending on who you are and what works for you. But the ultimate goal is to change the narrative of who you thought you should be or who people said you were, and now become the person that you know you can be. Because ultimately you have it within you. So leadership, definitely. For an introvert, I talk a lot about quiet leadership, and this is a form of leadership where you're basically leading by example, where you don't need to be the spotlight. You don't need to be that person that is commanding the room or that the attention is always on you. And often when we think of a leader, that's kind of what we have in mind, because that's the traditional way that leadership has been presented to us. Quiet leadership is really about not necessarily always having the spotlight on you, but being able to understand the strengths of the people you are leading and elevating them to be able to support you in your success. Some people call it transformative leadership, and there's different names going around. Some people call it kind leadership as well. They're very similar in the sense that the focus is not necessarily on what you're doing, but the focus is on how you're doing it. How are you ensuring that you are taking a people-centered approach in the way that you're leading your team?
And the way that you just put it, that's how I view leadership. And that's why I wanted to talk about it, because quiet leadership is your thing. Leadership, I always felt like a good leader also understands how to be led. You lead as well as you learn, right? So being able to tap into and being intuitive to like what the people like you're leading, what their needs are and how to bring out their strengths, I really do believe makes someone a good leader. Okay. So as we're wrapping up, I have to ask, for the introverted woman that is listening right now, she wants to advance in her career, or she wants to start her own side hustle. She's hemming and hawing. She's holding on to that narrative, that story that she has been told, or that story that she keeps telling herself. What is one thing you want to tell her right now as she's tuning in?
One thing that I would tell her is that she is more than enough. And often, not just personality-wise, often as women, we are the person who takes care of everybody. And sometimes you forget yourself in the process. And often with my clients that I work with, that's what I tend to see. Knowing that what you have in terms of the value that you bring to the workplace, the value that you bring to your family, that you are more than enough. And it's just a matter of you being able to understand that there is value that you can offer, and just take the time to assess your wins. It's a very simple exercise. It's transformed the lives of many of my clients. Just actually sit down and look at, okay, you've been in your career now for the last 10 years, the last 15 years. What have you done? Like, there's so many things that you've done. Like, some of you have been able to help your company make millions of dollars. You've managed huge budgets. You've been able to build partnerships with foreign governments that have helped your nation. Like, you've done amazing things, but a lot of times you just say, it's just my job. I was just doing my job. But even that was impactful. So just take a step back, actually write down and write them down. Actually write them down. Don't, whether you type or write, that doesn't matter, but actually keep track of what were some of those wins that you had in your career. And a lot of times it will surprise you how much of an impact you've made that you don't even recognize.
And this is the perfect time for a good segue. Do you have anything, because obviously the woman that you're speaking to just needs to reach out to you. Hire you as her coach. Do you have anything coming up? that you would like anyone tuned in to know about you? Where should they find you? Of course, everything will be linked, but please share with us what you're working on.
The best place to find me would be my website. So it's weapply.ca. That's where you can learn about our services, book a consultation if you're interested in coaching. And then the second best place would be LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. Personal branding is one of the key strategies I teach my clients. And then I have a YouTube channel. Just last week, I decided I'm going to take TikTok seriously. So you will also find me in the TikTok streets trying to figure things out. It's Lissa Appiah, Lissa with 2 S's.
And of course, everything will be linked in the description to find you. Please connect with Lissa. She is great at what she does. And one of the things you might say, wow, she's an introvert. Yes, she is, because she has learned how to tap into that and leverage her introversion. But she definitely is. But before I let you go, Lissa, I always ask my guests for a nugget to wrap up the episode. Do you have a favorite quote or just something that you want to leave the audience with today?
I'm paraphrasing, but don't compare yourself to others, but compare yourself only to your yesterday. You can't really compare yourself to other people because their story is different. Their backgrounds are different. As much as you may be in the same job, finding yourself in similar workplaces, you don't know what brought them there. You don't know what story brought them there. Sometimes you don't know what trauma brought them there. So you're comparing yourself to somebody, but you don't know what their story is. They may have done certain things to get where they are that you don't necessarily want to do because that doesn't align with your values. It doesn't align with who you are, right? It's better to just see what progress have I made from yesterday.
All right. Thank you so much for wrapping up the episode so beautifully, our conversation, and for sharing just through your experience, your success, how you are now able to lead, coach, inspire other introverts. I am wishing you continued success and growth. Until I see you in those LinkedIn streets, thanks for being with me here today again.
Thank you.